10 countries rated safe for women, just not for black women. And no, that's not the same list twice. Black women's travel safety gets measured 2 ways, and both drop half of you. The Women's Index scores your gender and stops. The black travel lists score your race and stop. You're the only one who travels as both. So we're not ranking these 10 by crime. We're ranking them by the gap between the rating a country got and what black women actually report there. Some got rated safe and aren't. Some got rated dangerous and were telling the truth. Subscribe, and we'll start at 10. Number 10. Japan. Japan has the best reputation on this list, and it earns most of it. It sits in the top 3 worldwide for how safe women say they feel, right up with Slovenia and Switzerland. Black women who've gone back it up. Ask any travel group, and you'll get the same review pasted 5 times. Cleanest trains they've ridden. Latest they've walked alone. Safest solo trip of their life. So the gap here is narrow. It just isn't 0. Late in 2025, Japan's own immigration services agency asked its foreign residents directly. 47% said they'd hit discrimination in ordinary life. Roughly 1 in 5 ran into it looking for an apartment. Nearly as many at work. And here's the piece no safety index has a column for. The State Department's Human Rights Report notes that foreign nationals and foreign-looking citizens get refused entry to hotels, restaurants, and bathhouses, sometimes by a sign in the window that says, Japanese only. Otaru, up in Hokkaido, spent years in court over those signs. There's no law against them. So you can be perfectly safe in Japan and still get turned around at the door of a noodle shop. It's the politest no on this list. Printed, laminated, hung at eye level. Nobody's going to hurt you. Somebody just gets to decide you're not coming in, and it's their call. For a black woman traveling by herself, that's a strange thing to sit with all day. The country isn't dangerous. The country's just not obligated to want you. And yes, I already know what some of you are typing. Plenty of black women have been to Japan 6 times and never been stopped at a door. That's true. It's not the claim. The claim is that the ranking never measured this at all. That's a narrow gap. It's also the only one on this list you could call polite. Number 9. South Korea. You're on a subway car at rush hour and you feel it before you see it. The kid across the aisle who hasn't blinked in 4 stops. The grandmother doing that slow scan from your shoes to your hairline. Then a hand arrives near the back of your head and somebody says, "Oh wow, your hair is so cool," while she's already touching it. Nobody in that car means you harm. That's the thing. South Korea posts crime numbers that most American cities would read as a typo. Women walk home at 2 in the morning. Phones sit on cafe tables while people order. Black women who've spent a year there call the staring constant and the danger basically absent. And they mean both. Travel Noir has interviewed black women who studied in Seoul and got kept out of venues at the door. A black Korean who grew up there explained the staring plainly. Race just isn't taught in Korean schools, so half the country is meeting you as new information. That explanation is fair, and it's not a cure. Being new information is a full-time job. You'll get complimented by more strangers in a week in Seoul than in your whole adult life back home, and half of them will be holding your hair while they do it. In Itaewon, you can put it down for an evening. Step outside that district and you pick it right back up, on the bus, in the elevator, at a convenience store counter in Hongdae at midnight. The first month, it's flattering. By the 4th, you're picking restaurants by how few people can see the door. It's a specific kind of tired, and it doesn't register as a crime anywhere, so it doesn't register anywhere. Korea's tourism copy sells serenity. The serenity is real. It just wasn't written with you in the frame. So how do you rank a country that never once threatened you and never once left you alone? 9th. Number 8. China. China's problem isn't the one the rankings prepared you for. Street crime in the big cities is low, transit runs late, and the odds of anything violent happening to a foreign woman are small enough that the safety indexes barely blink. Then you land, and you become a photograph. The awkward traveler collected these accounts across 10 Asian countries, and China ran hardest. Black travelers there report getting photographed constantly, usually without anybody asking. That last part matters more than it sounds, because in South Korea, people generally ask. In China, the phone is just up. A Cameroonian woman living there described her braids being touched with no permission requested and none expected. In Guangzhou's Xiaobei district, where West African traders have run businesses for 2 decades, a black woman is unremarkable. 90 minutes outside it, she's an attraction with a shutter sound attached. Now let's be fair. Most of it is curiosity, not contempt. Half those photos land in a group chat with a caption about how beautiful she is. Nobody's threatened. That's exactly why no index catches it, and no advisory mentions it. But the compliment and the camera do the same thing to your day. You came to see the country. The country decided to see you instead. Try planning an afternoon around that. You can't queue, you can't eat, you can't stand still and read a sign without becoming the thing being read. By week 2, there are more pictures of you on strangers' phones in rural China than on your own mother's. Being liked is not the same as being left alone. And nobody who hands you the safety score thinks to mention any of it, because none of it is a crime and none of it goes in a column. 8th, and notice what the ranking is measuring here. Not a danger level. The distance between a crime rate and a comfort level, which turns out to be most of the trip. Number 7, Portugal. Every list that tells black travelers to steer clear of the rest of Europe stops at the same border and changes its tone. Not Spain, they say. Not Italy. Go to Portugal. Cheap, warm, calm, Afro-Portuguese communities in Lisbon and Porto, going back generations. It sits near the top of practically every safe for black travelers roundup of the last 5 years. And here's what that recommendation is sitting on top of. The Council of Europe's Anti-Racism Commission looked at Portugal in 2025 and reported a sharp rise in hate speech aimed at migrants, Roma and black people. Then it published the enforcement math, and this is the part to hold on to. Portugal opened 895 hate crime investigations between 2020 and the middle of 2024. 17 of them led to prosecutions. 761 were dismissed outright. In 2023 alone, 262 investigations produced 5 indictments and 3 convictions. That's not a justice system. That's a suggestion box with a coat of arms on it. Now don't get me wrong. Portugal isn't ignoring this. Parliament stiffened the penalties in early 2024, and the anti-racist groups that pushed for it called it a real step. Give the country that. But look at what that means standing in Martim Moniz at 11 at night. The recommendation you were handed said Portugal is where you're protected. What Portugal actually offers is a place where the incident is less likely to happen and the follow-up barely exists at all. Those are 2 different products, and only one of them was advertised. And this is the country that gets recommended. Nobody's sending black women to Milan with a checklist. They're sending them here, to the safe one, to the exception. Portugal is at 7, and danger has nothing to do with it. It's the country the whole internet points black women toward, and on this list, it's the recommendation that misses by the widest margin so far. Number 6, Italy. Italy shows up at the airport as a postcard and behaves like a much older document. Nobody needs the brochure read out. Rome, Florence, the coast, the food, every third movie about starting your life over. Italy sells romance to women specifically, and sells it well. It'll pour you a beautiful glass of wine and spend the whole dinner deciding what you are. Then there's the research. In 2022, Global Human Rights Defense traced the hypersexualization of black women in Italy straight back to the country's colonial history in East Africa, and made the point plain. It isn't triggered by being a woman. It isn't triggered by being black. it's the two arriving together. Black tourists report being followed through shops, shouted at in the street, looked past at counters. In 2023, a viral video pushed the country into another reckoning, and one incident that surfaced was a black woman manhandled on a beach while the people defending her got beer thrown at them. And in Palermo, a black woman was warned before her trip that locals would read her as a sex worker on site, not for anything she'd do, for what she'd look like standing still. And that's a different category of problem entirely. You don't land as a foreigner. You don't land as a curiosity. You don't land as somebody they've never seen before. You land with a role already assigned, handed out about 400 years before your flight. Your job, for the rest of the trip, is proving you aren't it. On a beach, in a shop, at a table you paid for. Sixth, not because Italy is worse than Portugal on paper, because Italy's been working off the same paperwork since the 1880s, and nobody's asked for a rewrite. 5 down, 5 to go. Quick favor before number 5, because the back half is where this gets uncomfortable. Hit like if the ranking's holding up, and drop the country you'd have put in the top 5 in the comments, because somebody's going to fight you about it. Subscribe if you want the next one of these, and keep watching, because from here the logic of this list turns completely inside out. Number 5. The Dominican Republic. Travelers have reported being delayed, detained, or subject to heightened questioning at ports of entry and in other encounters with immigration officials based on their skin color. That's not a review. That's her own embassy, in writing. The U.S. Embassy in Santo Domingo has been publishing that language since 2022 and repeated it through the 2025 migration enforcement alerts. It goes further. It says disparate treatment of American citizens by Dominican authorities is an ongoing concern, that migration agents have been running sweeping operations against anyone they take for undocumented, and that in some cases, Americans mistaken for Haitian migrants sat in overcrowded detention for days without food or water. The embassy is specific about who this lands on: darker-skinned U.S. citizens and citizens of African descent. Now watch what happens. The Dominican Republic is one of the most booked destinations in the Caribbean for American travelers, and the brochure it hands, Black Americans, is warmer than most. Come where you blend in. Come where the food and the music make sense to you. Blending in is exactly the risk. In a country where blackness reads as Haitian, Punta Cana wants your deposit. The checkpoint outside Santo Domingo wants your paperwork, and it already has opinions about your face. The resort says, "Welcome home." The checkpoint says, "Prove it." One Black American traveler described getting asked where she was from over and over, while her non-Black colleagues were just assumed to be American and waved through. The passport in your bag says the same thing everybody else's says. It only gets read after your face does. And an embassy warning its own citizens about an ally's airport isn't routine. Somebody decided the pattern was consistent enough to say out loud, in writing, about a friend. Fifth, and it's the only country here where you don't have to take my word for the gap. Somebody official measured it and put it on a government website. Number 4. Morocco. Picture the shot you've seen 100 times. Riyadh courtyard, blue tile, a tagine on a low table, a woman in linen on a rooftop at golden hour, with the Medina behind her. Marrakesh has been sold to women, by women, on every platform for a decade straight. Here's the ranking nobody put in the caption. Morocco sits 8th on the 50-country ranking of the most dangerous places for female travelers, the one the travel press reruns every single year. In that same analysis, 45% of Moroccan women report physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner, the highest rate of any country on the list. Around 32% said violence against women is justified in some circumstances. Those figures describe how Moroccan women are treated by Moroccan men. They aren't a forecast for a tourist's afternoon. Serious violence against foreign women there is rare, And anybody who's spent real time in Marrakesh will tell you the Medina runs on charm the way a casino runs on oxygen. Relentless, almost never dangerous. And let's be honest, they're right. But a black woman walks into that hustle, carrying something extra. She gets read as African rather than American, which moves her out of the tourist column and into a local one. And the protections tourists get quietly stop applying. A tourist gets hassled and released, because a tourist is a transaction that's about to end. Somebody read as local is just a woman in the street, and the rules for that are the ones those numbers were describing. So the same alley does two different things depending on who walks down it. You're negotiating for a rug, for your nationality, and for your respectability, all in one conversation, with a man who already decided the middle one. And the correction costs you every time, because the fastest way out is to perform being American, loudly, in a place you came to be quiet in. Fourth, the rating was published, it was accurate, and it never made it into any of those photos. Number 3. Egypt. Egypt should be the most re-rated country on this list. So why does the rating never reach anybody? Think how much assessment this place has absorbed. It ranks 7th on that same list of 50. Only 47% of Egyptian women say they feel safe walking alone at night in their own country. And in 2013, the Thomson Reuters Foundation polled gender specialists who ranked Egypt the worst state in the Arab world for women, behind Iraq and behind Saudi Arabia. And Egypt is still on the bucket list, not a compromised version of it, the top of it. Here's how that survives. The pyramids aren't a destination, they're a life goal, and life goals don't get re-examined. Those things have outlasted 4,000 years, 6 empires, and every travel advisory ever written about them. Nobody Googles, "Is Egypt safe for women?" because Egypt stopped being a country in the imagination a long time ago and became a monument with a hotel next to it. For a black woman, the arithmetic gets worse. In Khan el-Khalili, the harassment every woman there absorbs comes bundled with a guessing game about where she's from, and the answer changes the price, the tone, and how long the conversation lasts. Egyptian society runs its own color hierarchy, and a dark-skinned woman gets sorted into it the second she opens her mouth, Chicago driver's license or not. And look at what that 47% actually is. Egyptian women, in their own country, in their own language, families a phone call away, and fewer than half will walk down a street after dark. That's the floor she lands on, before anybody has looked at her twice. Third, because Egypt has been rated more times than almost anywhere on this list, by more people over more years. Not one of those ratings has ever made it into the group chat planning the trip. Number 2. India. Ask 2 people about India, and you'll get 2 different countries. One says Kerala backwaters, Rishikesh at sunrise, a yoga certification, 3 weeks that reset her whole nervous system. That version has been marketed to Western women harder than almost any destination on Earth, and the women who describe it aren't lying. India will sell you enlightenment at 6 in the morning and have you explaining yourself by lunch. The other comes from the reporting. PRI found that Africans in India are routinely taken for either sex workers or drug dealers, as the default read. African students there describe being spat at, pointed at, laughed at over their skin. In 2016, a Tanzanian woman was beaten and partly stripped by a mob in Bangalore after a Sudanese student's car hit an Indian woman, an incident she had nothing to do with. And in 2019, BBC Africa Eye documented a network moving women out of Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and Rwanda into India and forcing them into sex work. India also ranks 9th on that same 50-country list, with the worst gender inequality score in it. Both countries are real. That's what makes this rank so high. The retreat in Kerala is real, and the street in Bangalore is real. And which one a black woman gets is decided by whether the person in front of her reads American or African. A call made in half a second by somebody who's never met either one, and the two of them are about as far apart as a spa menu and a police report. Your accent is your visa. You produce it constantly, and the day you're too tired to perform it is the day it costs you. And you can't opt out of it, because the call was never yours. It happens at a ticket window, at a hotel desk, in the second before a shopkeeper picks a greeting. You find out which India you're in by what happens next, which means you find out too late. Second, 2 countries, 1 border, and only one of them shows up in the wellness copy. Number 1, the United Arab Emirates. Now don't get me wrong. On the raw numbers, Dubai is telling the truth. Street crime is genuinely low. A woman can walk from a restaurant to her hotel at 1 in the morning in a way she can't in most American cities. The infrastructure works. The airport is a machine. The towers are exactly as advertised. When the Emirates calls itself one of the safest places on earth, the safety indexes back it up. That's not the marketing lying. That's the marketing being accurate. It's just not describing her trip. In 2023, the Daily Nation, one of East Africa's largest papers, investigated how black women are treated in Dubai. Immigration police there operate on the assumption that an unaccompanied black woman is a sex worker, not as a suspicion they arrive at, as the starting position. The paper describes a hierarchy where white women are pampered, brown women tolerated, and black women profiled, harassed, and kept out of the luxury spaces the whole city is built to advertise. Dubai put a velvet rope on every building in town, and it already decided which side of it you're on. It documents officers treating a black woman's presence in Jumeirah, or downtown, as itself the irregularity, and black women held at a police station over invented impropriety charges. That same year, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists documented a sex trafficking industry operating in the UAE, sustained by torture, deception, and official inaction. And one more line from the nation's reporting. Black women walking down the sidewalk get slowed down by drivers who lean out and ask them how much. Not in a bad neighborhood, on the sidewalk, in the safest city in the world. Every other country here got its rating wrong in some direction. The Emirates got its rating exactly right, and it still has nothing to do with you, because the rating measured a city, and the thing that happens to you is a decision somebody makes about your body before you've said a word. Number 1, and it isn't close. So what do you do with a list like this? Not stay home. Black travelers put $145 billion into trips in 2023, across 184 million of them, and 79% say a welcoming atmosphere decides where that money goes. Nobody in this business can afford to tell you to sit down, and I won't. Read both lists as what they are. 2 halves of one rating, and nobody's published the whole thing. Jessica Nabongo, the first black woman documented to reach every country on earth, says she got treated differently entering the same countries depending on whether she handed over her American passport or her Ugandan one. Same woman, same face, different country, depending on the paperwork. That's not a comfort. That's proof none of it was ever about her. And this isn't a foreign problem. An Iowa hotel called the police on a black woman for prostitution, and they found nothing, because there was nothing. An airline accused a black woman of trafficking the little white sister in the seat beside her. The assumption doesn't need a passport. It's just harder to see from your own kitchen. So argue the order with me. Portugal at 7, or does the country everybody recommends belong higher? Put it in the comments, because somebody who lives there will answer you better than I can. Hit like if the ranking held up. Subscribe if you want the list nobody else is measuring. And until then, travel wide, travel loud, and make them look you up.